Great architect of heaven and earth, to whom all beings owe their birth, on friendship's altar rising here, this sacred fire we guard sincere. 'Twas reared in honor of thy name, by brothers whom this day we fame. Though strong and firm our numbers now, to those who built it first we bow. Hello and welcome to Phi Kappa's 115th Founders Day. On this day, we take pause to think about the 115 years that we've existed, as well as touch base with our present and look towards the future. To do that, we'll be having three main segments: a State of the Fraternity with CEO Tim Hudson, a tour around Phi Kappa's founding locations with Charlie Ball, then we'll be inspired by stories from current undergraduate members who overcame many obstacles during the COVID-19 pandemic. Interspersed, you'll be hearing bits of our Founders Day poem that pays tribute to our four founding fathers. After our presentation, we encourage you to participate in the Founders Day of Giving. Every dollar goes to benefit the undergraduate experience and further advance our great fraternity. To start us off, here's Tim Hudson with our State of the Fraternity.
Happy Founders Day, brothers, and happy 115th birthday to our great fraternity. I'm happy to share a brief State of the Fraternity with you today from the memorial office of Jack Anson here at the Executive Offices building. It's been a challenging year, but we have healthy chapters and colonies. Over 85 active groups strong right now, sustaining membership to propel our fraternity beyond this COVID-19 pandemic. But our members have continued to innovate. They've continued to engage with each other. They've continued to make their communities better. And yes, even some have had record-breaking recruitment. But our fraternity has healthy chapters and colonies, and we're excited about the future of Phi Kappa Tau and the sustaining members today that are going to propel us past the COVID-19 pandemic. Planned growth and return to campuses across the country is another area of focus for our national fraternity. We have 5 planned returns in the upcoming academic year, and we've seen 2 efforts to bring back chapters in this past academic year. We're excited about our opportunities for growth, and we're excited about our partnerships with those host institutions, one of which is our Alpha chapter, just up the road here at Miami University. The financial health of our organization has been constantly monitored and evaluated throughout this past year. We are in a position of financial strength. Having said that, our organization took bold moves to provide discounts to the structure of our fees in this past year, which has allowed our chapters to sustain the members and to grow. New adaptive and innovative programming has taken place this past year. The Phi Kappa Tau Foundation fully funded a new online program called Progress. We had an all-star group of facilitators delivering over 15 hours of new content. And during Progress, more than 500 undergraduate leaders and alumni volunteers engaged in productive leadership sessions that are relevant for today's leaders. The 3 tenets our founders based the formation of this fraternity on are innate worth of the individual, square dealing, and democratic principles. During this past year, the National Council stood up a task force for diversity, equity, and inclusion that reinforces and furthers the organization's commitment to the very first one of those tenets, the innate worth of the individual. Phi Kappa Tau continues to make that a priority for our membership. Finally, throughout the past year, the donor support for the Phi Kappa Tau Foundation has been steady and strong. We continue to see dollars impacting the experience of our members. More than 100 needs-based scholarships have been granted, and there's another round of scholarships upcoming in this spring academic term. To each of you who has given, thank you. This is a crucial time for the organization, and your support is ever needed. Let me provide each of you with a challenge to participate in the Phi Kappa Tau Founders Day of Giving taking place right now. Every gift matters. Your participation matters. Take this opportunity to give to a program or a chapter that you're most passionately involved with. Our members need your support. Whether your gift is $19.06 or $115 for our birthday, or somewhere in between, or well in excess, every gift counts. To everyone who has already participated or given earlier this year, thank you on behalf of the Phi Kappa Tau Foundation trustees and the staff. As founder Bordale was fond of saying, everything's working out just as we planned. While I don't think he was able to really see into the future, he was certainly understanding that this organization would be adaptive and would be instrumental in lives for generations to come. To each of you, my brothers, undergraduates and alumni, and to all of our stakeholders, parents, university administrators, and volunteers who serve on our Board of Governors, thank you for the work that you do to help keep this brotherhood experience alive. 115 years. Let us celebrate and let us keep an eye to the future. There are so many more milestones yet to come. Happy Founders Day.
The sacred truths, but them revealed, shall be our cornerstone and shield, that by and through our mystic tie, this truth and light shall never die. Phi Kappa Tau was founded on March 17, 1906 on the campus of Miami University. Not every Phi Tau gets the chance to see the founding location, so we sent National Historian and current Director of Philanthropy for the Phi Kappa Tau Foundation, Charlie Ball, out with COO Travis Robinson to show you some of the founding sites. Take it away, Charlie.
All right. So here we are on the Miami campus where Phi Kappa Tau was founded March 17th, 1906, 115 years ago. This is an interesting spot where we are because we know for certain this is ground that Dr. Scheidler walked, and so for decades Dr. Scheidler walked from his home to his office along this path. And we say it often, but it's awfully clear in this position that we're literally walking the same ground that the founders walked here in Oxford on the Miami campus. So, you know, some of these buildings have changed, but this really, the upper campus still has very much the feel of what the campus looked like and felt like in 1906. Many of the buildings along the other side of the high street were here then. While the old main building where we were founded has been replaced, the Harrison Hall that's there now looks very much like the twin-towered old main building where we were founded. This is today called Harrison Hall, but was traditionally the building on that site was known as Old Main. And that's the building where Phi Kappa Tau was founded, along with some other of the national fraternities that were founded here at Miami.
What else would have made up this sort of quad here?
Well, this has always been green space here. So this and the slant walk from the campus uptown has been here really since the very beginning of Miami University. The path has been worn by students walking from campus to uptown Oxford. We know that a number of the founders, early members, contributed. We've got the records online that Miami University has preserved, and it's interesting to see that almost all the founders, all the foundation members made contributions as young alumni to build that library on the university centennial. But interestingly, the form is very similar to what that building looked like in those days, and so the Union Literary Society Hall, where we were founded, was essentially what would have been in space, kind of on the third floor, the two windows just to the left of this tower on the right-hand side of the building. So if there's any other space where you really get a feel of what the campus felt like in those days, it would be right here. These two buildings, the north and south dorms, now called Elliott and Stoddard Halls, have been here for almost 200 years. They were really the only dormitories in use for men at the time of the founding. Miami was, people forget, Miami was a really small school at the time, fewer than 500 students. And so two dorms that size could pretty much handle all of the men. So it would have been a walk from the North Dorm, where we know that Scheidler and Boyd lived, to come from that dorm over here to the old main building on that Saturday afternoon when the fraternity was founded.
Next, we're going to take a look at some buildings named after Phi Taus, Scheidler and Bachelor Hall.
So obviously, Dr. Scheidler was probably the leader of the four founders from the standpoint of his contributions to the fraternity. You know, we talk about the fact that he held virtually every office in the national fraternity, including he swept the place up, the headquarters up during World War II when we were short-staffed, and he essentially ran the headquarters while our then CEO or our National Secretary Dick Young was off in the service. But Scheidler lived here in Oxford. He grew up not far from here. He came back here after getting his PhD at Cornell in 1910, and then spent the rest of his career on the faculty. Really was the founder of the geology program. So that's why this building was constructed in 1967 to honor his almost 50 years of teaching. We say that's a record that's never been topped. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's still 47 years of teaching is a pretty impressive record. We're inside Scheidler Hall. It's been renovated fairly recently, and greater prominence has been given to the museum that houses a lot of the collections. The core of which really came from Dr. Scheidler's personal collection. He collected lots of fossils and things from throughout this area into Kentucky. He worked for the State Geological Survey in Kentucky for a number of summers, and was a real expert on the outcroppings of just this geographical area right around here, and many of his collections are still in this housed in the museum that's here today. Bachelor Hall, one of the more recent buildings named for a Phi Tau here, or major buildings, honors Joseph Bachelor, who was another, like Scheidler, great Miami teacher. He came here a little later in life after working and living in New York City, was editor of a big volume of a century dictionary, wrote a lot of poetry that's still available today. The greatest role that he played in Phi Tau history is as the author of our ritual, which we still have the original 3 or 4 pages that he wrote in his own handwriting. That is the genesis of the ritual we use today. That was written about 1909, 1910, when he was an undergraduate. And so we owe Bachelor a great debt of gratitude for framing up those ideas that had been a part of the organization since its founding, but had probably never really been put on paper, crystallized until he took those steps, put those few statements on paper when he was an undergraduate.
Finally, we're going to be looking at Phi Kappa Tau's campus impact at Miami and some of the sites that we're responsible for.
So, what's commonly known as the Phi Tau Circle was created to memorialize or honor our first 75 years at Miami, when this was originally constructed and the seal coat of arms was installed. But after 25 years, it was beginning to look a little tired, and we decided on our centennial in 1906 to upgrade this, redo it, add the wall behind that has our founding date and our centennial date. From where I'm standing, you can see the North Dorm and where the old main building was, where we were founded. So it has some historical significance as well. But this is really as prominent a reminder of Phi Tau's involvement, continuing involvement with Miami University as there is. So this building was designed by Richard Lennox, a Phi Tau from Purdue, a really well-known architect who was also on the Fraternities National Council at the time, and served us for many, many years until we outgrew it. By the time we sold this building and moved to the new headquarters, we were actually operating out of 3 buildings here. The first building that we acquired was a building right across the street at 14 North Campus, which was the original Frenicon house. That is the first chapter house in Phi Tau history. Phi Tau's headquarters, when we first professionalized the headquarters staff, we operated out of rented space in downtown Indianapolis at 2 or 3 different locations. In the late 1920s, it was decided to move to Oxford. At that time, Phi Delta Theta had a small headquarters here, and Dr. Scheidler was here and could kind of supervise the operation. But until between the time we left Indianapolis and before this building was completed, we actually rented some office space uptown, and on top of the building is now a popular restaurant, Skipper's Pub, and that was the headquarters for just a few months. I don't know that we have any photos of it, but that was some rented office space until this building was completed in 1930-31. So here we are at the home of Alpha Chapter. This has been the Alpha Chapter House for now more than 75 years. It was built in 1931, the first and only chapter house built by Alpha Chapter. Currently vacant as the chapter is out of business, but with plans to come back, which we're really excited about here in the next year or so, and finally return Alpha Chapter to the Miami campus. This was built as a memorial to the founders, and this land was vacant. This whole block was vacant and owned by Dr. Brandon, who had the idea that it would be used as a fraternity park. This entire block is all fraternity houses still.
That's all we have to show for this year. Thank you again to Charlie for the Pride Tour, and hopefully next year when things are a bit more normal, we'll be able to show you around the office. The sacred truths, but them revealed, shall be our cornerstone and shield, that by and through our mystic tie, this truth and light shall never die. It'd be difficult to talk about last year without talking about the pandemic. Sometimes it's hard to even understand what it must be like to be an undergraduate going through a global crisis. So we sat down with Director of Chapter Services Brandon Lewis to discuss this past year.
at this point, everybody knows it was insanely difficult for everybody who was involved with it. No one had truly any overall wins. Like, their lives were not incredibly better in 2020 than it was in 2019. Everybody struggled. But what I did find is our chapters, specifically our leadership, specifically, and in a lot of ways, some groups that I didn't expect, persevered more than I would have thought. I remember thinking in March, at this point, a year to the date, feeling a sense of hope, hoping that we were going to get out of this, hoping that things were going to get better. And clearly things didn't, and things unfortunately got worse for a good part of the year. But even still, our chapters kept performing and kept doing things well. And some of our chapters even exceeded their expectations and did better in 2020 than they did in 2019. So I did see a lot of resilience, and it's given me a lot of hope for just the future of fraternity in general, that if a pandemic, a situation in which simply gathering, which is at the crux of what this experience is about, a fraternity, if that being limited still propelled our groups to succeed and to do great things, then I think we can overcome pretty much anything.
After Brandon mentioned chapters overcoming difficulties, we want to talk to undergraduates directly about their experiences in 2020. They're all from different chapters, but you'll notice that their stories are very much the same.
So let's just start there then. What would you say was the biggest challenge to overcome, and kind of how did the group adapt?
Yeah. So, where to even start? It was a tough year for everybody.
I think the biggest challenge was retaining our core members.
We would all hang out all the time. It was kind of difficult.
I don't think a single chapter in this country had it easy. And there were just so many different factors that affected us, both retention and recruitment, and just letting guys, giving guys the same experience that they would have during a normal semester. And that was all really tough, especially right when COVID hit us. Just a year ago today, on March 15th, nearly that time, we were all sent home.
A lot of the issues came well, how are we going to do this? We weren't allowed to do community service. We weren't allowed to go off campus to do community service. They weren't offering anything here. We couldn't do that.
So our biggest challenge was just keeping the core guys who were always involved in our fraternity still active, and trying a bunch of different ways and methods to all have a sense of brotherhood without all the time being together.
Stuff we can do outside. We bought a lot of outdoor games. We bought more picnic tables. We would just all hang outside. And instead of just focusing on community service stuff, we shifted that all into philanthropy.
I think we did a really good job of keeping the chapter alive. And I think that was sort of the sentiment that a lot of the country's chapters here, with Phi Tau at least, were trying to do. Everyone's at home and just trying to keep retention, trying to make up for a loss in money as well, with losing money through whether or not getting down payments back for formals, or guys not wanting to pay dues, right? It's just a lot of different issues there that a lot of people are trying to handle.
I think we're the only Greek organization on campus to raise any money whatsoever, because they all just gave up. But we just, that was one of the ways we could do something together, I guess. We just did it.
And it was really nice too. Our school had a lot of virtual events as well. So there's this thing called Skit at our school, which essentially every chapter, normally in a normal year, choreographs a dance and performs on stage in our Memorial Hall. It's a big deal, probably one of the biggest things ever. And here at Chapman, we're not like a D1 school. We don't have great sports, but we'd say we have D1 and dancing and spirit. And so that's the most awesome event ever. And they converted to a virtual platform. And my chapter, at least, I pretty much got involvement from almost every brother in our chapter, which was I'm really proud to say that, because a lot of chapters, especially fraternities, didn't get a lot of involvement in that event. And
we had guys, say, hey, I'm going to jump on this game. Does anybody want to come on and play with us? And, guys would come on and hang out with them. I know that our alumni of Beta Theta did monthly, or every 3 weeks, they did a hangout. They called it a hangout. and all the alumni got on, and you know, a little happy hour at like 5 o'clock on a Thursday.
The thing I loved was we invested in a projector and like a projector screen for outside. And we would do either like, we would just drag the picnic tables out to the back parking lot and clear the cars, or we would have all the cars parked towards the screen. We would either do like a drive-in movie theater kind of thing, or we would do like, everybody sit on the picnic tables and just watch a movie, and it was really cool.
COVID has given us sort of like a fresh start, right? And it's given everyone sort of a fresh start. We can repaint and revamp certain things we do, such as philanthropy, the way we recruit guys, sort of give ourselves a new image and rebrand, for lack of a better word, right?
But I do think the relationships that I've built with some of our board of governors and my fellow brothers have built, I don't know if we would have gotten that had COVID not happened, because the ability to do it online and to have all these meetings really encourage people just to get on because it's so easy.
Our president 2 years ago loved quotes. I don't know, he loved quotes. And so he would always just lay it on me whenever. The quote was, "If you dislike change, you'll dislike irrelevance even more." And that just shook me to my core when I had to go into this stuff. Because like, obviously you can't just sit around here and do nothing, or else we would end up like one of the other chapters on campus. I mean, one of these chapters during this time went from 40 people to 18. And I didn't want that to be us, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I have a question in my head, but I think it might be a little hard to even speculate on, but we're at 115 years this year as a national organization. What do you think fraternity is going to look like in another 115 years?
And then what are we going to need to do to get there?
That is a great question. What do we need to do?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question, just because how much college has changed in the past year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I personally think Phi Tau is in a pretty damn good spot to make another 115 years.
I mean, I see the growth just being a part of a colony, and I see from being president the help that I've received from nationals on guidance, and I feel like you guys do care about the colony aspect. So I would just say continuing growth, and I bet 115 years from now, I would love to see Phi Tau at every campus.
Fraternities in general have really got to step up their inclusiveness. And I think that's what people really need to focus on, because I think a lot of the issues we're having lately, discount COVID. A lot of places are kind of struggling with COVID, but a lot of places have adapted to it. But I think nationally, amongst all fraternities, it's just a bad thing that people feel like, oh, well, I'm going to try to justify hazing in my organization because you can't just walk in here, you got to prove yourself. But there's ways to do that without giving somebody a hard time, without giving somebody a bad experience, because this whole thing is supposed to be a great experience. It's supposed to be a learning experience, a growing experience, a good time. I think that's something that we do exceptionally.
So the outgoing president my freshman year, he gave one piece of advice. He said, never forget where you came from. And I think that's that is just so important, especially like seeing in my own life as well. Just be a good person, be a friend of the friendless, right? Like, never forget where you came from. Like, I used to be the kid who didn't have a lot of friends, right? And you always have to acknowledge those people, or else like you're never going to get anywhere, right? Everyone's a human. You have to take care of everybody and do your part. And I think that just goes to show like our fraternity, no matter how big it grows, or no matter what we become, we can never forget where we came from. Like, we were a smaller chapter, we're the Fredicon, like we're the anti-fraternity, and looking at us now, like we can't forget where we came from. Otherwise, we're going to lose all sight of our morality and the things we care about and our values. And I think that's something that, all humanity should really take into consideration. But if we really want to grow and be successful, that should be the goal. Yeah, I have no reservations that the fraternity is, and hopefully mine as well here at Chapman University, is going to continue to grow and be successful, hopefully 115 years from now. But yeah, that's a great question. That's really something to really ponder and think about.
Hey, well, thank you, Dylan. I really appreciate you taking part in this today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Logan. Have a good one.
All right, dude. Well, thank you very much. Perfect. Well, thanks, James.
All right, thanks, Logan. Have a good day.
All right, see you, man.
Yep.
I think that in order for us to survive 115 years, we have to keep moving forward. We have to keep moving within the progress of not only college campuses, but within just the development of us as people and development of what our society values. I think that's certainly something we can do. If fraternities existed as they did in 1906 now, they would be obsolete. There wouldn't be a need for fraternities as there were 115 years ago. All fraternities have changed to some extent. We have to continue moving forward with that. There is a train of progress that has continually moved since the dawn of history. That train is going to move regardless if Phi Tau's on it or not. Now, we have to make the decision if we are going to be on that train or are we going to be dragged along the way.
Thank you for the chapters and Brandon for participating in this interview. Adieu, my brother, all adieu, ye honored and enlightened few. These moments may we ne'er forget, companions leave as we have met. Once again, we encourage you to participate in our Founders Day of Giving. Every dollar counts and your gift matters. Happy Founders Day, brothers.